The house felt unusually quiet that evening, too quiet, like it was holding its breath. I pushed open the front door and stepped inside, shaking the last bit of cold air from my jacket. The sky outside had been a deep, bruised purple, the kind that made the streetlights glow earlier than usual. Winter was definitely creeping in. Even the wooden floor under my shoes felt colder than it should have. It was supposed to be an ordinary night, routine, safe, but something felt off, like a puzzle piece had shifted while I was gone, so subtle no one else would notice, but impossible for me to ignore. I stood in the living room for a moment, letting my eyes adjust. Everything looked normal: the soft hum of the heater, the faint smell of laundry detergent from the morning wash, the couch cushions slightly uneven the way he always left them, and yet, my chest tightened with a strange unease. Why does it feel like something is about to happen? I shook the thought away and tried to laugh at myself. Maybe I was just tired. Maybe my mind was looking for drama where there was none. Still, as I walked deeper into the house, I couldn't ignore the tension coiling quietly in the back of my mind. His door was cracked open. A thin line of warm light spilled into the hallway, flickering softly like it was breathing. I paused. He rarely left his door open like that unless he wanted to talk, or unless he wasn't there at all. Hello. I called out gently. No answer. I told myself not to overthink it, but the silence felt heavier than before. A part of me wanted to push the door open. Another part whispered that I shouldn't. That crossing that line, even a small one, could change things in ways I wasn't prepared for. Instead, I moved toward the kitchen. The window above the sink was fogged from the heater, blurring the view of the street outside. I wiped a small circle with my sleeve and stared at the empty road. Not a single car. Not a single person. It's too quiet. Why did that bother me so much? Moments later, I heard the front door close softly. I turned around sharply, heart jumping. He walked in, hair slightly damp, cheeks flushed from the cold, eyes darker than usual. His expression froze when he saw me. "Oh, you're home," he said, voice quieter than normal. Something in the way he looked at me made my stomach twist. There was tension in his shoulders, like he'd been carrying a secret all day and didn't know how to put it down. "Yeah. Just got in," I replied, trying to sound casual. He nodded once and walked past me, but the air between us felt charged, like electricity just before a storm breaks. I watched the way his jaw tightened, the way his hand stayed curled at his sides, the way he didn't quite meet my eyes. What happened to him today? And why did I suddenly feel like it had something to do with me? He paused at his door. Didn't go inside, just stood there. Then he looked back over his shoulder, just for a second, and that single glance carried something I couldn't name, something unspoken, something dangerous, something that would change everything sooner or later. I swallowed hard, and somewhere deep inside me, a question formed. Was tonight really going to be just another normal night? Because suddenly, it didn't feel like it at all. If you want, I can continue with the rising action, 1,200 to 1,500 words, next. He stepped farther into the room, slow enough that I could have stopped him if I wanted to. But I didn't. Instead, I shifted slightly, creating a small space beside me on the couch, barely noticeable, yet somehow an invitation. He didn't sit. Not yet. He stood near the low table, his hand brushing lightly over the edge as if testing the room, the silence, or maybe testing me. The lamplight carved soft edges around his silhouette, highlighting the quiet confidence in the way he held himself. "You seemed off," he said quietly. "Earlier today. When I saw you outside." I swallowed. I didn't remember him seeing me. Then again, maybe I hadn't been paying attention to anything lately. "Long week," I managed. He hummed in understanding, a deep, warm sound that settled unexpectedly low in my stomach. "Looks like more than a long week." His words hit closer than they should have. I didn't want to open up, not to him, not to anyone, but something about the dim room and his calm presence made honesty feel easier. "Safe, even, maybe," I whispered finally. He sat, not close enough to touch, but close enough that I could feel the shift of the couch, the slight warmth of another presence. I realized how long it had been since I'd felt that simple reminder that someone else existed in my space. For the video's faceless style, my focus drifted to the small details: his hand resting on his knee, the way his fingers tapped lightly in thought, the shadow that moved across his jawline as he turned his head slightly toward me. "You shouldn't be alone if you're feeling like that," he said softly. A humorless smile tugged at my lips. "I'm always alone lately." He didn't answer immediately. The silence stretched, not awkward, just full. Heavy with things neither of us wanted to say. Then, gently, he asked, "Where is your partner tonight?" I hesitated, "Working." It came out flat, lacking any real conviction. He nodded, though something in his posture changed, subtly, as if he understood more than I was saying. "Do they know how you feel?" he asked. I let out a small breath. "They haven't noticed anything in a long time." His hand stopped tapping. For the first time since he entered, he turned fully toward me, his body angled in a way that made the space feel smaller, warmer, more charged. "You deserve someone who pays attention," he murmured. The words landed deeper than they should have. My heart stumbled. My thoughts tangled. I should have disagreed, should have defended my partner, should have said something, anything, to create distance, but instead, I found myself looking at his hand, suddenly aware of how close it was to mine. Close enough that if either one of us moved even slightly, our fingers would touch. A small spark ignited in the quiet between us, and even though I knew it was dangerous, I didn't pull away. "If you want part 3, just say part 3. The space between our hands felt impossibly loud. A thin stretch of silence, trembling with something I didn't want to name. The lamp flickered softly, casting a golden haze over the living room, blurring the edges of everything, except him. He didn't move at first. He just sat there, breathing gently, present in a way that felt both grounding and dangerous. My heart thudded harder than it should have for something so small, so subtle, so forbidden. "I've been worried," he said, voice low. "You've looked so distant lately." His concern was simple. Genuine. And it pierced straight through the armor I'd built around myself. My voice cracked. "I feel like I'm disappearing." It was the truth, raw, vulnerable, the kind I never dared say out loud. Not to my partner. Not even to myself most days, but he heard it. Really heard it. The young man leaned forward slightly, elbows resting on his knees. The shadows shifted across his face, hiding it just enough to match the faceless silence between us. "You shouldn't have to feel that way in your own home." His words stirred something in me, something I'd been trying to numb for months. The loneliness. The longing. The ache of being unseen in a relationship that had once felt warm, then slowly cooled into something unrecognizable. I looked at his hand again. Still close. Still waiting. I didn't know who moved first. It might have been him, it might have been me, but our fingers brushed. A soft graze at first, like testing the weight of the moment. I didn't pull away. He didn't either. Our hands found each other quietly, palm to palm, fingers intertwining in a slow, hesitant motion that felt more intimate than anything physical. The warmth of his skin against mine sent a ripple through my chest, sharp, undeniable, frightening. I whispered, though the words came out weak, barely convincing myself. "I know," he murmured, but he didn't let go. His thumb brushed softly against my knuckles, a small, tender stroke that held more emotion than any kiss could have. My breath shook. He shifted closer, just an inch, enough for the air between us to thicken. The faceless closeness was all in the details, the outline of his shoulder near mine, the rise and fall of his breath, the way his presence filled the room with a heaviness that felt like longing. "Tell me to stop," he said quietly. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. Every sensible thought scattered. All I felt was the warmth of his hand, the attention I had been starved for, the fragile comfort of being seen. I can't, I admitted. Something in him softened at that. He lifted his other hand, not to touch my face but to gently rest on my forearm, just enough pressure to anchor me, to steady the storm inside. Then, a sudden vibration shattered the moment. My phone lit up on the table. My partner's name glowing on the screen. We both froze. The ringing filled the room, vibrating through the couch, through my chest, through the tension between our hands that still refused to let go. And in that suspended second, guilt and desire collided inside me like thunder. "If you want part 4, just say part 4. The phone kept vibrating against the wooden table, its bright screen cutting through the dim room like a blade. My partner's name flashed again and again, each pulse a reminder of everything I was supposed to be faithful to, everything I had just crossed away from. His hand was still wrapped around mine. Slowly, almost reluctantly, he loosened his fingers. Not because he wanted to, but because the moment demanded it. The warmth faded instantly, replaced by the weight of reality settling heavy on my skin. "You should answer," he said softly. His voice didn't carry judgment. It carried something worse, understanding. I didn't move, didn't reach for the phone, didn't even breathe properly. "I can't," I whispered. The phone finally stopped. The silence that followed was sharper than the ringing had been. I stared at the screen, waiting for it to light up again, waiting for another call, another reason to hide from what I'd just done, but nothing came. He shifted slightly away, giving me space without stepping out of the moment completely. The lamplight touched the outline of his shoulders, softening him into a shape that felt familiar now, even though tonight was the first time he had ever crossed my threshold. "You know," he said quietly, "caring about someone isn't supposed to feel like this." I swallowed hard. "I don't know what I'm doing anymore." He didn't argue. He didn't ask for anything. He simply stood up from the couch, moving with a slow, thoughtful calm. His shadow stretched across the floor as he walked toward the doorway, pausing with one hand resting on the frame. He looked back, not fully, just enough for me to sense the emotion in the tilt of his head, the softness in his posture. "You deserve someone who actually sees you," he said. "Even if it isn't me." His words hit deeper than they should have. He didn't wait for a reply. He stepped out into the dim hallway, his silhouette fading until only the sound of the back door easing shut told me he had gone. I sat there in the quiet, hands trembling slightly, staring at the empty space where he had been. The warmth of his touch still lingered in my skin, a ghost against the cold air. Then my phone buzzed again. This time it wasn't a call, just a notification. A message from my partner, "Running late again. Don't wait up." Just that. No concern. No apology. No question about how I was feeling. Nothing. The contrast stung deeper than any betrayal I could imagine. I stared at the message until it blurred, until my thoughts became a tangle of guilt and longing and confusion. I reached for the phone. My thumb hovered over the screen, shaking slightly. Should I reply, stay silent, confess, hide? Every option felt like a cliff. A single thought whispered through me, trembling and unresolved. Do I answer, or do I finally let go? The screen dimmed before I chose, and the room fell silent again, heavy, breathless, waiting. "If you want." White heavy checkmark. The full 2,000-word combined story in one file. White heavy checkmark. A YouTube Faceless video script version. White heavy checkmark. Visual prompts. Just tell me.